A woman in New Zealand is facing up to a year in jail after her 10-week-old baby died. Her crime was sleeping in the same bed as the child, or co-sleeping, as it's often called. It's a horrible case, but it obviously got us talking this morning. Do you think that sharing a bed with your baby, something that so many mothers do you think it should be a crime, Jane?
Well, no, absolutely not. I mean, it's a really, really difficult... Obviously, this is the law in New Zealand. It's called criminal nuisance. But, you know, this woman will live with this for the rest of her life. She already will be destroyed by it. So to criminally prosecute a parent, I just think is beyond the pale. And I'm really glad that it doesn't happen here in these circumstances. She's obviously not been convicted yet, she's just been charged, but for me that's bad enough. But it does open the wider discussion, because, you know, every time you hear, one expert will say to you, never co-sleep with your baby under a certain age, another will say it's all part of the bonding process. And as parents, you just constantly get this conflicting advice. I'm trying to think back to what I did. I mean, it's a bit of a fog, isn't it, when you first have a baby? But from what I can remember, I think the first 3 months I didn't, because they are so small, and you kind of think they're completely helpless. They don't really have any way that they move very much. So I did have a Moses basket right sort of down at the side of the bed. But from about probably 6 months onwards, yes, absolutely, co-sleeping, absolutely. But you know, it's tricky, isn't it?
I slept with mine from day one.
In the bed with you, as not just for feeding and then into the cot again.
No, and often I would fall asleep breastfeeding them. I mean, you know, it would just pass out asleep. But I really did feel I was doing the best thing. You know, I'd read about how actually that a child, you can pick up if something's wrong. I was more scared to put my child into another room or away from me. I wanted to be really close to her and listening to her. And you know, the thing was, with Maddie, I had to go back to work fairly soon, and I was heartbroken about that. And so for me, sleeping with her was the time that we really bonded and really attached. You know, and you're getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was going to give my baby to my mum, and then I'm not seeing her till 3, 4 o'clock. When am I going to have that time with her? And, you know, the thing is, what's the figures compared to babies that sleep out of their room, you know, because at the time there was a lot about cot death.
Well, statistics, I was quite surprised by this. I mean, it's an American study, isn't it? But it said of the 3-something thousand deaths of babies in America that in this study, 74%, I think it was as a result of co-sleeping. And I was really, really shocked by that. And you know, maybe it would make me think differently about it. I mean, there's the common sense thing, isn't there, that if you've been drinking heavily, if you're on medication or
to not do
whatever. But
I'm not going to lie, though. There's sometimes when I had a glass of red wine when I was breastfeeding, you know, and that's what frightens me, you know, with this kind of thing. You know, it's like you were saying earlier, weren't you, Jane? You know, if you go through forensically of somebody's evening, you know, is any mother totally perfect?
You put the microscope of blame onto it.
Exactly.
Oh, well, you had a glass of wine.
You know, my son, because the advice then was to sleep with them.
Yeah.
You know, he's 29 now. And the advice then was to sleep with them, because I think a mother's instinct, you feel if your child is ill, you know it inside, you know them, you know something's wrong, and I think instinctively you'd know if something was wrong in the sleep. And literally, I mean, he slept in my bed. In fact, I couldn't get him out.
Is he still there now?
On a Sunday morning, which I love, reading the Sunday papers in bed, and if he's at home with me, he'll come and he'll plop at the side of me and he'll, "What's the news, Mum?" He'll pick the paper up and he's lying at the side of me. But no, he slept in my bed till he was probably 9 or 10.
But going back to the figures that you mentioned, Jane, figures in 2009 reveal that over 100 babies in England and Wales died as a result of co-sleeping. Now, the figure is higher than that when you take into account sudden infant death syndrome. And there was also the really sad case in Northampton, where an 11-week-old baby basically was asleep in her dad's arms. He fell asleep and the baby died. obviously the case was treated very differently over there compared to in New Zealand.
So did you co-sleep?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Even though, you know, you didn't hear of those cases back when my babies were little, I instinctively didn't. And it wasn't because I thought it was wrong or what have you. I wasn't given any advice, pro or con. I just was worried in myself that I might roll over and squash the babies. So they slept in a Moses basket by the bed, and you get that mum hearing the tiniest squeak, you know, you're awake. Obviously, take them into bed to feed and then put them back again. Again, we were asking for your comments. We've had some really interesting points of view on this. Sarah says, I'm a children's nurse in a busy emergency department and I've seen too many babies die from co-sleeping. Parents shouldn't be punished. The trauma of losing their baby is bad enough, but educating families of the dangers of unsafe co-sleeping is more important.